Hello and welcome to Alive Soul podcast, where we explore personal growth, high performance, and intentional living. I'm Dr. Wasim Bellani, and I believe that life isn't just about going through the day, it's about becoming fully alive in everything we do. Through my journey as a doctor and heart rhythm cardiologist, and then through my exercise journey in cycling and running, and later in personal development and growth journey, I've learned that success isn't just about reaching goals, but about who we become along the way. This podcast is here to inspire and challenge you to push your limits, cultivate your discipline, and live with purpose. Join me each week as we dive into ideas, reflections, and practical strategies to help you grow into your best self. So let's get started. Hey there, and welcome back to Alive Soul podcast. Last week, we talked about something that I think many of us don't fully realize about ourselves. We talked about the idea that you are probably more capable than you think. Very often, the limits we feel in our lives are not actually about ability. They come from what we believe is possible for us. And during that conversation, we mentioned several elements that can unlock that potential. So today, I want to spend a little more time on one of those elements, because it quietly influences many of the decisions we make in life. And that element is identity. To me, identity is simply the way we see ourselves. It's the story we carry in our mind about who we are and what we believe we are capable of. Do we see ourselves as someone who takes on challenges and pursues difficult goals? Someone who can stay disciplined, face fears, and keep going when things become uncomfortable? Or do we see ourselves as someone who avoids challenges, someone who doubts their abilities, someone who believes certain things are simply not meant for them? Because the way we see ourselves often shapes the choices we make. It shapes the goals we allow ourselves to pursue, and sometimes the goals we don't even allow ourselves to imagine. It shapes how we respond when things become difficult. See, some people face a challenge and think, I can figure this out. While others face the same challenge and think, I'm probably not the type of person who can do this. And over time, that identity becomes the boundaries of what we believe is possible for our lives. And many times we don't even realize how much that belief is shaping our actions. Sometimes we simply accept the identity about ourselves and we stop questioning it. We assume that this is just how we are. But that assumption can quietly limit how far we allow ourselves to grow. And when I look back at my own life, I realize that for many years, I carried an identity that shaped how I approached sports and exercise. See, growing up, I never really saw myself as an athlete. I wasn't particularly good at sports, at least that's how I perceived it. And to be honest, I cared much more about studying and doing well academically than I did about sports. So slowly, without realizing it, without really noticing it, I started forming a belief about myself. I started seeing myself as someone who simply was not athletic. Whenever it came to sports, I felt a bit timid and unsure of myself. I didn't feel confident. And because of that, I never really pushed myself in that direction. See, if you believe you're not good at something, you usually don't spend much time and effort trying to improve it. And over time, that belief quietly becomes part of your identity. And for me, that was the identity I carried for many years. I never imagined that sports could become an important part of my life, even just as an amateur. But something interesting happened a few years ago. I started cycling, and at the beginning, it wasn't something special. I was just simply riding my bike. There was no big goals behind it, and no expectation that this would become something serious. But something started to change as I kept riding. The more I rode, the stronger I felt. And the stronger I felt, the more confident I became. And little by little, the way I saw myself started to shift. And instead of thinking of myself as someone who isn't athletic, I started seeing myself as a cyclist. And that change didn't happen because I suddenly woke up one day believing in myself. It happened because I kept showing up and riding. And every ride made me a little stronger. Every ride made me a little more confident. And slowly, those repeated actions started changing my identity. And eventually, I even joined a non professional cycling team, something I would have never imagined earlier in my life. And later came running, and once again, I noticed the same pattern. Again, for most of my life, I never thought myself as a runner. Running a long distances or even a marathon felt completely outside of my identity. But as I started running, and as I kept showing up again and again, that belief slowly began to change. And eventually, I found myself running distances I once thought were impossible, let alone completing a whole marathon. And that experience taught me something important, that confidence usually does not come first. Confidence often comes after the action. And for me, every bike ride strengthened my belief. Every run strengthened my identity. And this is often how identity evolves. Not because we suddenly change our thoughts overnight, but because our actions gradually change the way we see ourselves. And the reality is that many people carry identities that quietly limit them. They believe they are not disciplined. They believe they always quit when things get hard. They believe that they are simply not capable of certain achievements. And when someone truly believes those things about themselves, they often stop trying. Because, for example, if someone believes they could never run a marathon, they will almost certainly never run one. Not because it's physically impossible, but because their identity never allowed them to even consider it. Now, the encouraging thing about that identity, that it's not fixed. It's not something we are born with and cannot ever change. Because identity evolves over time. And most of the time, it changes through small actions repeated consistently. One ride, one run, one disciplined day, one moment you showed up even when you didn't feel like it. And slowly, those actions begin to reshape the way you see yourself. So maybe the real question today is not only what goals you want to achieve. Maybe the deeper question is who you are becoming. Who do you see yourself today? Because the way you see yourself will quietly influence the life you build tomorrow. And sometimes the biggest transformation in life doesn't start with a dramatic change. Sometimes it simply starts with giving yourself the chance to grow beyond the identity you once believed about yourself. Maybe the person you are capable of becoming is already within reach, but it begins the moment you start showing up differently and proving to yourself, one action at a time, that you are capable of more than you once believed. And remember, every habit you build, every effort you make, it all adds up. So keep showing up, because the small steps you take today are shaping the person you become tomorrow and the identity you carry with you. That's it for this episode, my friends. And if you like it, please share it with people around you, because we all grow better when we do it together.